My name is Shulamit, and I'm the creator of the MetaSounds process. Every Sunday at noon, I host a Zoom meeting for us to explore wisdom teachings and experience the healing power of MetaSounds. These meetings are made possible by generous donors. Please help this site thrive by liking and subscribing, and please join our newsletter at greatoctave.com to receive notices of our events. Welcome, everybody, to this very hot Sunday. I wanted to talk more about spirituality today because there's a lot of conversation on the internet and so on about an awakening consciousness among some people. And I want to talk more about what's involved with that. You may have been successful in your life getting the material and the emotional goals that you had, achieving them. You may be disappointed because you've had sorrow or grief. And one of the things that happens is that you want to know if there's more to life than what you have in your hand. It isn't only about not doing well. It's also about doing well. Sometimes when you have what you searched for, when you have all the comforts that you wanted, and suddenly your achievements don't taste as good as they once did. This is not an uncommon event in people's lives, particularly as they reach the end of kind of midlife. And there's a longing, because we all have a longing. We have a longing to connect. We have a longing to find that part of us that's been missing since the day we were born. That peace that we can't name, the peace we can't find, the peace we were told is nonsense, maybe by others. We want that connection, but we don't know what it involves. I mean, there's certainly a lot of points of view, let's put it that way, or paths you can follow, and it's all available to you through the internet and through religions and so forth. There's a lot of, it's a strange word to use, but it's a lot of competition for your attention. And some of the paths that are proposed and that people follow, some of them are honest and true. They all require a lot of work and consistency and discipline over time, which is something that is true of any endeavor in life. You want to play the piano, you want to play baseball, bridge, golf, you want to do well at your work. Everything is discipline over time. And then there are a number of paths which are not true, which are not honest, which are led by false teachers who are more interested in their own either financial profit or their own self-aggrandizement. And these people can be quite dangerous. And they appear even in established religious and spiritual paths. So you could have a yoga teacher who is wonderful, and you could have a yoga teacher who is not so wonderful, but who has powers. Now, this is important to understand. A spiritually advanced person gains certain powers of insight, powers of control over the body, and so on. And if they are not evolved in other ways, they can use these powers to manipulate you. They are not good people. You have to keep your eyes open. This is absolutely no different than, I don't know, entering into a business enterprise or choosing a teacher. You have to be careful. You have to keep your eyes open. You have to make sure that the person who is teaching you or leading you is an honest person. And then, of course, there are the paths that appeal to you or don't appeal to you. Many of us come from established religions, which for some reason or another we may not find to be helpful in this unknown thing that we're seeking, whether it's God or completion or peace, inner peace. You know, there are different paths. And even, for example, within Buddhism, there's Zen Buddhism and Tibetan Buddhism and Thai Buddhism, and they all have different approaches. So you have to find your correct place. And this is also true of any of the Western forms, any of the Christian meditations, the Jewish meditations, etc., the Islamic meditations, the Sufi meditations. I mean, there's just like a supermarket of availability out there. The first thing that happens, I think, when you really start to get this gnawing desire to advance spiritually, it's not, you may think that it's you. You may think that you have, decided to do this, that this is a worthy enterprise for whatever time of your life. But in reality, it is an actual normal development of the individual. But the challenge often is that we stop ourselves. We're told, perhaps, that what we're seeking is not available. And if it's available, it's not worthwhile. And you're going to embark on a journey that takes years and might not bring you the rewards that you had hoped for. So, in other words, it's a fool's journey. So, having accepted, I think it's a good thing to accept that it's a fool's journey, because you don't know where you're going. You don't know where you're going, and you don't know whether it's valuable. You could read all the quotes in the world, which people do, from very, very fine and wonderful and gifted teachers, but they may not be easily applied to your life. I mean, you might see the wisdom of them, but you may not have an idea of how to integrate that into your everyday. So it's a learning process, and there are obstacles. There are obstacles. One obstacle, well, the biggest obstacle is fear. Fear of the unknown, as I mentioned, fear of not getting what you want. It's another one. But there are other fears. There are fears of losing what you have, of people turning away from you. And indeed, you might lose some friends along the way. I mean, that's common in a change of point of view or in pursuit of an activity. On a more profound level, you might fear annihilation. I don't mean that you're going to be killed, but I mean that your ego, that thing that defines you separately from others, that separates you from others, that tells you that you are distinct and better, and so on, that actually, it's true, might be reduced in power over you. There are some traditions that do work to annihilate the self, but that's not necessary on this path. You might be afraid that you will lose access to pleasure. After all, the images we have of a successful or an achieved spiritual person tend to be from years ago, when people became really exaggerated ascetics, depriving themselves of all worldly pleasures in order to climb a spiritual ladder. They could become sour and bitter and mean and judgmental and harsh. And I mean, we're familiar with religious history. Religious history is not pretty. Many of the people who have died horrible deaths in the history of the world, it has been as a result of religious persecution. But I think these are all outmoded. These are not necessary. In fact, it's false. You don't have to give up your pleasures. You may have to restrain them because it doesn't help spiritual advancement if you're gluttonous in any way, whether it's sexual or food or certain kind of behaviors. You can get the pleasure deeper, more profound, but it's limited in your exercise of whatever you're doing. It becomes more modest. It becomes more controlled. And yet that doesn't mean a diminishment of pleasure. In fact, it means an intensification of that pleasure, because love begins to suffuse everything. So on the climb, I'm describing it as a climb, but it's really an integration. You think of it as climbing to like the top of a mountain or to the light, but it really is an integration. The light is always with us, as is the darkness. Love is always with us, as well as hatred. Judgment is always with us, as well as compassion. Vision is always with us, as well as, working hard to manifest things. It's all part of us, and it's all accessible to us, but we have to learn how to look at the way we behave and understand whether it serves us or not. So there are certain habits that we have that are, I don't know if they're applauded by the society or tolerated by the society, but they're certainly around, and they seem to, they're diversion, aren't they? So if you get into maligning other people because of their political beliefs, or because they're too fat or too thin or too whatever, that language of separation and ridicule is all around us. And we might be drawn to it as we are to gossip, because, I don't know, it's amusing, it's diverting, but it doesn't advance. In fact, it inhibits your spiritual development. So you have to learn about these simple things that stand in your way, like jealousy and envy. Jealousy assumes that somebody else has something that if you had it, you would be so happy. Sometimes you get it, the thing that you were so jealous of, and find that it doesn't fill you. Maybe it fills you a little. Maybe it temporarily satisfies, but it's not sustaining in the long term. Rather, to learn to be satisfied with what you have is a much greater spiritual gift. Anyway, all these gifts are available to you if you learn how to look at yourself in a proper light. The narrative, the stories that you tell yourself over and over and over and over again about the nature of reality, about the nature of your reality, reinforces ideas about how to behave. And they may not serve you. It's not that your story is silly. Your story is your story. And there may be a lot of grief, or there may have been a lot of wonder, and you may have developed into a certain kind of person because of it. But there's no need to dwell on it so much. Open your eyes. It's kind of like if you were abandoned when you were young, then you expect the world and the people that you encounter in the world to constantly, over and over again, abandon you. This might cause you to abandon a loved one or a lover before they abandon you. And you may find that you're living out this reality, right, of being abandoned, that you never find what you're looking for. So you have to learn to look at your life. I'm not telling you to give up your survival protections. That's not necessary. The more you come into a wider understanding of what's happening, the more you can attach to the more abundant universe, the more you can feel a kind of humility about your place here, an understanding of the road you've taken, and often, there are plenty of joys, but there are plenty of sorrows, as I'm sure you know if you're of a certain age. There are plenty of sorrows. Even small children, right, experience the grief, incredible grief of a broken toy. May seem silly to us, but it's not silly to them. So it's a slow, deliberate process. And every time you're about to give up an idea that you think has protected you all of the years of your life, your ego, which acts as an independent force to control you, a slave driver, a tyrant, begins to tell you the most terrible stories. If you give up this form of self-protection, if you give up this idea that you're going to be abandoned, you will be destroyed. I'm just using that as an example, but there are a million examples. Your ego rushes in to keep hold of the situation. And it is a very fierce combatant. But at the same time, it's you. You created it. You fed it. You nourish it. You tell it what your identity is. You tell it what to do. You tell it, protect my identity at all costs, protect who I am, and so on. So you can also control it. It takes time to figure out how to do that. If you're looking to solve emotional problems, there are many ways to do that, including therapy, which is quite marvelous. But once you want to come to a spiritual understanding, you have to go beyond that story, beyond your story, and come to a place where you relax more into the abundance of life, rid yourself of false ideas, and just be. And that, while it sounds just be, like, why can't anybody do that? It takes a very long time. So patience is also required. And then you might say, well, is it worth it? Well, it is worth it because you learn to live in a very resilient way, even into your old age, with the spirit of youth, with the ability to get up from reverses, with the ability to laugh at the good times and be happy and not drag your past baggage with you. And then, of course, to feel that abundant connection, especially if you're coming to a point in your life where at a certain point, you're going to be leaving all of it, or it's going to be leaving you. To have that sense of abundance allows you to live in peace and to die in peace. So yes, it is worth it. I'm telling you, basically, in a sense, without going into detail, my story. And I've been at this for a very, very long time. And I went through all the fights and the trials and so forth of my own ego stepping on me, blocking my way, and also bringing me, at one point in my life, more people who were trying to divert me from the path. Now, if you're of a religious persuasion, you can imagine these are, negative beings that try to keep you from the light. That's also a possibility. But whatever it is, it's work, but it's rewarded. The work is rewarded even from the beginning in small steps. So I'm now going to make sounds to you, and I ask you to relax, to receive. Okay. Thank you for joining me today and being part of our community. I invite you to join us every Sunday at noon Eastern Time for the full live experience. Wishing you a wonderful week, and I look forward to connecting with you soon. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Visit greatoctave.com for more details about these webcasts, our newsletter, donations, and more.